balance is very complex. To try and cover it all in 30 minutes is just about impossible. It's wildly complex. You have physical therapists take extra courses to learn how to do this stuff. It isn't something you just learn straight out of PT school. You learn some of it, but not all of it. There's three main things that your brain is taking in to judge where it is in the environment. The first, and the most important, is the sense of gravity in your ears. Your ears have got organs in them which can tell where upright is. It's done with some tiny little crystals that pull on hairs. And then the next thing you do, depending on the environment, the next equally important things are your vision. Your brain is continually making reference to the environment around it and judging your position relative to what it assumes are fixed vertical objects around you. You're doing it all the time, you don't even realize it. And the third thing is the sense of feeling, particularly through your feet, but also the joints in your legs too. So those are the three main ways it does it. And then it uses that information, it brings it all in, processes it really quick, in 3/1000ths of a second, and then it sends signals out down your spinal cord to all your muscles to keep you upright. Hundreds of muscles, dozens of joints. It's controlling these all the time. So it's extremely complicated and extremely difficult to do. To build a machine that could do this would be quite an achievement. Although they are beginning to do it. We use our balance every day. Get out of the chair, bending over time, driving a car even, walking, staying alive. Because without your balance, you'd be in a world of hurt. Because unless you can orient yourself to your environment, either the saber-toothed tiger is going to get you, or you're not going to get the little bunny rabbit for your evening meal. So you're not going to survive. You need to be able to balance to move around and survive in your environment. Where the brain gets information? Well, first of all, there's the vestibular system. I've really gone over this already. The soles of your feet are particularly richly innervated, which is why if you get diabetes and your feet go numb, you lose your sense of balance. And your brain coordinates it. Yeah, I've already gone over that. This is the inner ear. It itself is extremely complicated. It's made up of really two main balance sensors. There's a set on each side. And this stuff inside here, this thing, that's the hearing bit, this is the balance bit, would fit on the end of your fingernail. It's tiny. You've got one inside each ear. It's right inside the bone of your skull, the very big bone. Petrous bone, the hardest rock-like bone in your body. And there's two bits to it. There's the semicircular canals, and there's this thing here called the utricle, which means little leather bag in Latin. And those two systems, well, first of all, semicircular canals help you determine if you're spinning, and the utricle has got the crystals in it that lag behind whenever you accelerate. So that's how you can tell if you're going in straight lines, forwards and backwards, side to side. And there's another bag underneath, which isn't on this picture, called the sacral, and that does the up and down bit. So your brain is able to detect whether you're going in straight lines, accelerating, or rotating. And you've got three rotations. What's the other one, that one? And it can detect all of those three. And again, it's doing this all the time. Of course, there's the hearing bit, which isn't directly related to this. You can have awful balance and still have perfect hearing, and you can have perfect hearing, you can have lousy hearing and still have perfect balance. Because the auditory nerve, the eighth cranial nerve that comes off your brain stem, just before it gets into here, splits, one for vestibular and one for hearing. So you aren't necessarily going to have one go wrong and the other go wrong at the same time, but there are some diseases that will do that. If you had an infection, for instance, it might wipe both out at the same time. But it's not that common. Deaf people can still balance.
Yes.
So that's in more detail.
Dancing with the stars.
It balances.
The detail, it does get a bit complicated, but these three canals represent the three planes of gravity, roughly. They're not quite right. This one, the horizontal, for instance, is actually tilted up at about 30 degrees. Probably because, and some of you won't like this, but I'll say it anyway, we're probably evolved from an ape that used to walk around like this. Some of them are now applying to be the presidents of the United States. But anyway, as we evolved, we came upright, but there was no evolutionary pressure to have our canals drop down. So they remained tilted up and the brain's just dealt with it. The others aren't actually in you'd think if I was God making this stuff in the first place, I would have one going side to side and one front to back, but they're not. They're actually at 45-degree angles. This back one works with the front one on the other side and vice versa. So when you rotate, you're inhibiting and stimulating different canals at different times. The brain knows, because it's wired up to accept this information, which way you're actually rotating. So if something goes wrong with that, you get very disoriented. You can't tell where you are. Right, next one. I think I might have done this already, yeah. So you've got the inlines. Also, that's how we know if we're leaning over. Not only acceleration, but when you lean over and hold it, that's acceleration due to gravity, so that's the same thing. So that's how you can tell you're leaning as well. If something goes wrong with this, you can get the real strong feeling you're falling over when you're not. Or you can't tell when you're falling over because it doesn't detect it. So yeah, that's that one. Semicircular canals. Same thing, you've got pitch, roll and yaw, the three movements that the semicircular canals detect. So, proprioception, that's your body's ability to feel where all the bits are relative to everything else, and also the pressure coming up through your feet. There's no point knowing where the pressure coming up through your feet is if you don't know where all the rest of you is, because otherwise you come to the wrong conclusion. So the brain is also looking at the angles of all your joints, where everything's lined up relative to everything else. And the old proprioception test, which is on the next screen, is your ability to touch your nose without looking. If you close your eyes, you should still be able to find the end of your nose. Yeah, that's it. It's even more complicated than that. If you hold one arm up in a random position, close your eyes, you should, yes, be able to find it. If you can't, there's something wrong with your proprioception. The body is using that as well. Waving the fingers, now you can confuse this system. This is, if I can remember how to do it. Put your hands out like that, turn your palms away from each other, overlap your hands, weave your fingers together, and without hurting yourself, bring your hand round like that.
There you go.
Right, now if I go to this lady at the front, move that finger. There, see, we've got confused, moved the wrong one. Because you can confuse it. And of course, when that gets confused, badly enough, the parts of your brain, like the cerebellum, get damaged with a stroke, or parts of the spinal cord gets damaged. I thought he was going to ask some questions, just testing. So part of the spinal cord gets damaged, you can't get this information up your spine, you can't walk properly. And in fact, there used to be an old disease, I'm terrible for going aside, but when I was a kid, I was told that sailors always walk like this. And the old story goes, little Johnny's with his mother at the seaside, and there's this old sailor walking down like this. And little Johnny says to Mummy, 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 why is the old sailor walking like that? And his mother, either out of ignorance or by being polite, said, well, that's because he's used to being on the rolling decks of a ship, and he's got so used to it he can't help himself. The real truth of the matter was he had a girl in each port, he caught syphilis and destroyed the port. So there we go.
Yeah, he's allowed.
Tabes dorsalis.
Sometimes he laughs because
Anyway,
Did you hear it?
I don't have a picture to say.
He must
And
have
your whole
thought
body's
it was
covered
really
with
hot.
pressure receptors. You can feel when the wind's blowing on you and you'll lean into it. So again, that's another thing that the brain is bringing into itself to keep yourself level. Yeah, so I think that's that one covered.
I'm going to remember that one.
Your eyes. Your eyes are probably the second most important thing that you use to balance with, because you're, as I said earlier, you're subconsciously making a note of where vertical things are around you, which is why it's more difficult to balance in the dark, particularly if you've got problems with the other two systems. So if your feet are numb and your ears are shut, the dark's your enemy, because you're going to fall over. So yeah, some of you know, if you've got diabetic peripheral neuropathy, you need to have night lights. And more than that, you need to have a flashlight next to your bed. Because if there's a power outage, and the genes that cause you to develop diabetes later in life also cause you to have to get up to the toilet 2 or 3 times a night. So if you get up during the night and it's completely pitch dark, your feet are numb, and the sense of balance in your ears aren't working very well,
You're goner.
you're going to need a new hip. So keep a battery-powered flashlight around.
I always carry a flashlight.
Sorry?
I always carry.
Yeah, people who've got these problems often do, because they realize, of course, a lot of people's cell phones now have the built-in line. Our vision and inner ear work together in harmony, so that our inner ear senses motion and our eyes keep our vision still, to keep our eyes and our vision still. That's called the vestibular ocular reflex, and this is very important. If you lost both ears, so that you can't tell which way you're moving properly, when you move your head, you go blind temporarily, because your eyes can't lock on the target. You don't realize this, as you're walking along, your head's bobbing up and down, while your eyes are simultaneously bobbing in the opposite direction. Because if it didn't, you get what's called oscillopsia, your vision will blur, you won't be able to see anything. So, your eyes are very important, but they're also important in working in harmony with your inner ear. If that harmony breaks down, you've got problems. Where have I got to? Yeah, I'm a terrible one for jumping ahead on these screens and forgetting. Yeah, we've all had the experience. If you're sat in a car, if you don't, you lose it. And you go blind, or at least blurry. So you damage any part of this system, whether it's your eyes, your ears, or your sensation in your feet, for whatever reason. And tabes dorsalis is pretty rare in this day and age. Diabetes is going to be your biggie. Very common. Peripheral diabetic neuropathy. I won't ask for hands up, but I know there's at least one person here now, because he's sort of giving the game away, but I bet there's more than him here. It's very common as we get older. If you damage any of those 3 systems, your balance is going to be compromised. So damage to your inner ear can cause dizziness, vertigo, loss of balance. Vertigo means spinning. And when that happens, your vision can blur as well, because you lose the VOR. We don't have anything here where everybody can do it at random or all together. We have some brochures that we have. We don't have any. It's too late, I haven't got enough time. But when you go home, after you've looked in the mirror and turned your head from side to side, get yourself a book with some fairly big writing on it and hold it at arm's length. And if you move your head from side to side twice a second, you can still read it, clear as a bell. If you move your hand from side to, well, in fact, you can do this with your thumbnail. Stick your arm out in front of yourself and look at your thumbnail. It's nice and clear, right? Turn your head twice a second. 1, 2, 3, 4. You can still see the thumbnail, yeah? Now move your hand at that speed. Can you see the thumbnail? No. Because your brain can't cope with it that way. It's got to feel the movement and keep your eyes moving. And what's happening is, as you move your head one way, the eyes go the other way. That's called the VOR, the vestibular ocular reflex. So if you lose the inner ear senses of balance, you can't see clearly when you move around. You get oscillopsia. And that makes you increased risk of falling, particularly in the dark, and particularly if you're on uneven surfaces. So the next time you go to a marijuana-steeped beach party in the dark, you could fall over if there's something wrong with you. Well, you're going to fall over anyway. But you could fall over if there's something wrong with VOR. Because you're in the dark, there's people vaguely milling around you, and you're still on a soft yielding surface. So you've lost visual lock, you've lost proprioceptive lock, your ears are shut, you'll fall over. So be very careful if you've got numb feet going out at night. Take a cane with you, because the extra little proprioceptive output through your stick, through your arm, and usually with peripheral neuropathy, you don't get it in your arms as bad as you get it in your feet. So your arms are still going to help. Use that cane. Swallow your pride. When I'm 60, I am going to get a hearing aid. 18 months from now. So yeah, I know what it's like. I mean, I'm not as old as most people here, but I'm getting up there, and it's a real bugger. But the fact of the matter is, you may have to, because it's better to use that cane and swallow your pride than fall over and bust your head. If you're over 80 years of age and you fall over and break your head, there's a good chance it's going to kill you. It's that dangerous. So pretty good. Cane, I think, is a much nicer option. Damage to the proprioceptive system. Again, I've leapt forward a little bit. The diabetes is the biggie. If you've damaged those, you can't feel what you're walking on properly. It's like you're walking on foam permanently, so you can't feel it. You go in the dark, now you're left with just your ears to balance with. And if there's something wrong with your ears too, you're really shocked. Think of your balance as a three-legged stool. You can get by just about with one leg missing if you're careful, but once you get two legs missing, you're really in a world of hurt. You're just balancing on one foot on the stool. That's difficult. So the diabetic peripheral neuropathy is the biggie in your age group. That's the one that's really going to make you aware. And it could well be that your sense of balance has been degenerating over the years anyway, but it's not until that second system collapses that you really begin to realize and you start to have trouble. So damage to the eyes, loss of eyesight, cataracts, which fortunately in this modern age aren't a problem. Every time I do the intake for my patients, one of the questions we ask them if they've got cataracts, and they'll, especially 65 plus, well, I've had them replaced, and I always ask, and how did that go for you? Because I'm very selfishly wondering, because I've been told I've got to have it. So apparently it's wonderful. Everybody, thank God, says, yeah, it's the best thing I've ever had done. Yeah, if you've got loss of eyesight, macular degeneration, cataracts, or some other lesion in the eye, then of course you're losing that second, probably the second most important input to your brain. So again, you've got to be careful. Make sure you know what you're standing on. Use a cane if you're at all in doubt, because otherwise you're at risk. A cane can be a lifesaver, just one cane, especially outdoors. Now indoors you're pretty good, because usually you're near something you can touch, you know the environment intimately, but outdoors can be an issue. So again, what happens if you lose two senses? So if you lose two of them, as I said before, it's like yourself on the stool with just one leg. It's very difficult to keep on that stool. Common causes of vertigo. This is common knowledge now in the general population. The loose crystal problem. It's called BPPV, benign paroxysmal positional vertigo. It is quite common. It occurs at any age, although it tends to be people who are older who get it most. It can be caused by infections of the middle ear. That's the most common reason for it. And head injuries. I've had one or two people. I had one young woman who fell off a ladder, and she knocked crystals loose in both ears, and she was in a world of hurt. What happens is those crystals come loose and they end up down one of those semicircular canals which detect whether or not you're turning your head. And depending on which canal the crystals go down, it fools your brain into thinking you're turning your head when you're not, and it makes you feel terribly dizzy. In short bursts, whenever you move your head, by doing simple exercises, and I know this sounds too good to be true, but by doing simple exercise, you can move those crystals back where they belong and get rid of them. It's actually quite easy to get rid of. But there are other things that can whack your sense of balance too. There's Meniere's disease, which you may have heard of. Yeah, you may even know somebody, but it's fairly common. It's often misdiagnosed. It's a difficult thing to diagnose. It's really what's called a diagnosis of exclusion. In other words, you rule everything else out, you can't find anything like Meniere's disease. It's a disease where there's a chemical imbalance in the semicircular canals. You'll know if you've got it because it only comes in short bursts, lasts for a couple of hours. You'll get horrendous tinnitus in your ears, deep roaring tinnitus, not the high-pitched whistle that most of us get as we get older. You'll start to lose a hearing in your ears, and you'll get repeated attacks over many years until eventually it completely destroys both your hearing and the sense of balance in the affected ear. It can be so bad that some people have to have the organ surgically removed because they're so dizzy they just can't survive. That's pretty damn rare. It's also even more rare that it gets that bad. Anyway, what can you do to maintain your sense of balance? Well, you stand on a big blue ball and hold the basketball. It's obvious. Not really. I mean, for your age group, that's ridiculous. But the first thing is remain active. You've got to choose activities that you can cope with, because at the end of the day, you're never going to make your balance like it was when you were 25 years of age, but you can improve on it. But don't choose something where if you get it wrong, you're going to fall and hurt yourself. It's pointless. Of all the things I know, yoga, Tai Chi, very good for this type of problem. It will help tune up your system. Because unlike other senses, balance isn't just one thing. So there's always room for a little bit of improvement. It isn't like if you go blind, well that's it, you're blind. With balance problems, there's always ways you can compensate. So if you've lost a sense of balance in your ears, you can at least teach your brain to use vision more. Or if your feet have gone numb, you teach your eyes to use your vision more as well. If you go blind, of course, it's difficult. But you just got to be careful about the types of shoes you wear. Don't wear very spongy soled shoes, because that's depriving your brain of one of the things you need to feel where you are in space. If appropriate and you can tolerate it, then a competitive sport such as racquetball, something that's making you have to move and coordinate and balance, a healthy diet, keep your weight under control, because at the end of the day, you might have absolutely fantastic sense of balance. All the information is coming in from your eyes, your ears, and the proprioception around your body is going in. The body's correctly, the brain is correctly processing the information and then sending out the correct signals. But if you're grossly overweight, it's difficult for your body to cope with it, and you're not going to balance as well. Plus, of course, you've probably got arthritis as a consequence, and you put all that together, you can't respond quickly enough to make the changes necessary to maintain your balance. So keeping your weight down, keeping healthy and strong help as well. And of course, weight problems can lead to things like diabetes, which can cause neuropathy, which can cause you to fall over. So again, the boring truth of the matter is, you've got to try to keep your weight under control, which is not easy in a society. I struggle with this all the time. I weigh myself 3 times a week, and it's frightening how easy, the older I get, how little I have to eat to maintain my weight. It's dreadful, and I love eating. I mean, you've got to be really careful. Yeah. What to do if your feet go numb? Always avoid moving in the dark if you can. Well, always. I mean, sometimes you have to, but be careful about being in the dark. You need that extra visual input if your feet are numb. So use a flashlight, or at least have night lights in your home. Between where you sleep and the bathroom, make sure there are no mats, rugs. Don't leave anything on the floor the night before. Because if you're anything like me, something I put on the floor a minute ago, I cannot possibly remember. I can remember what Elton John released in 1974, but I'm damned if I can remember that thing I put down on the floor 5 minutes ago. So if you leave something on the floor just before you go to bed, and you get up in the night, and it's dark, and you trip over it, and you're highly reliant on your eyesight, when it's dark, you can't use it, away you go, you're falling over. So you're around between your bedroom and where the bathroom, it's important you keep them clear and lit with night lights, and of course have a flashlight just in case there's a power outage, because it happens. If you're diabetic, follow your treatment regimen carefully, yeah?
Would you mind standing to
Sorry.
one side or the other, because
You can't read it.
I can't see anything. Thank you.
Oh, sorry. So if you're diabetic, follow your treatment regimen. Don't let it get hold of you, because it's likely to make your feet go numb. Just going to...
That's okay, I just needed it. Thank you, sorry.
If your eyesight's poor, avoid yielding surfaces such as thickly padded parks, gravel driveways, and marijuana parties on the beach. Use supportive footwear, but without high heels, because the higher your heels are, the more you're having to balance. The further gravity over your base of support, without getting too technical. So don't wear heels. Avoid tripping hazards, I've said that already. Be careful about pets. This might seem a bit weird, but if you've got pets, put a bell on them. Because if it's in the dark, it's alright, it happens all the time. If you're in the dark and Tiddles is walking around in there, you might appear it, especially a cat who's silent. You might trip over it, so put a bell on Tiddles. Gives the mouse more of a chance to remove rugs and power cords, of course. So, avoiding falls, which is mainly what I'm here for. Don't walk around in the dark, use night lights, particularly if your feet are numb. Don't leave power cords around. Keep rugs and mats level, or better still, don't have them. Rugs and mats curl up in the corners and are a tripping hazard. Be careful about small pets and animals. Be careful about soft yielding surfaces. And use anti-slip mats and grab rails where there's any chance of wet floors. and I was told I only had half an hour, but I can drone on about this subject for days if you want to. Particularly the anatomy and physiology, if you're really interested. I love that stuff. But those are within half an hour, and the half hour has gone. That's as much as I'm covering today. Any questions though? Yeah.
Is neuropathy common if you don't have diabetes?
It's called idiopathic neuropathy in that case, and yeah, it's surprisingly common. I get a few patients every year with it. Idiopathic is the term that the medical profession uses because they hate to admit they don't know. So they give it a fancy term, idiopathic, idiot. An idiot is someone who does not know. It's a pathology that's not known. It's common, actually, and there's not much you can do about it, unfortunately. Yeah.
So there's nothing, somebody that has this idiopathic neuropathy or diabetic neuropathy.
Diabetic
Can
neuropathy.
they do for
Yeah, the diabetic
exercise
neuropathy.
or something to help this balance thing?
One of the problems with particularly diabetic neuropathy, it causes pain as well. There are things like Lyrica that take the pain away. Now, as far as the sensation is concerned, it didn't work for you. Huh?
No, somebody else has it, but they don't have the diabetic, they have the other one where
The other one has nothing to do for it. Not that I'm aware of.
nothing to do,
No,
so you can't
no.
do any kind of exercises or,
Well, no, not that will return the sensation.
well, right, but I mean, that will help you with the balance and stuff.
It's education as much as anything. If you do, what we do is in a situation like that, we get someone in and we test their sense of balance. And if we find that it's because they can't feel the feet properly, we do exercises to teach them to compensate and adapt by using eyesight and the sense of balance in their ears more effectively. You can't change the neuropathy at all. That's completely irreversible with medical science as it is today. But you can improve the level of balance. We use a machine in our department called an Equitest machine, and it tests. You stood on a computerized controlled platform with a computerized surround, and it tests how well you're using the sense of balance in your ears and the sense of balance in your feet and your vision. And you can then tell which of the three systems the patient is having trouble with. So if it's something that's irreversible, you do exercises to teach the patient to use the two remaining senses more effectively. And education, of course, the advice about things like
Thank you,
falling over.
thank you very much.
Yeah.
What if a person just has one eye that actually works? Does that affect the balance?
It might, yeah. Particularly if the other two senses aren't working too well as well, yeah. Yeah, it might. Because you're using binocular vision to judge your position in space. If you're blind in one eye, you have to some extent lost depth perception. Because if you remember back at school doing trigonometry, way back, your brain is doing instant trigonometry. It's actually doing instant calculus too. You don't even realize it's doing it. So your brain is, if I look at that lady's nose, my two eyes have now turned in to look at that nose. My brain, subconsciously, is drawing a straight line, and it's looking at this angle here, and it's cosines or tangents or something, and it's working out, because it knows how far my eyes are apart, and from that angle, it knows how far that lady's nose is from me. So if you've lost one eye, you've lost that. So yes, it will affect you to some extent. But the brain's very good because it also knows roughly how big a woman's nose is, and therefore it makes an educated guess. So it's not completely out, but
You
yeah.
ought to compensate by distance or size when you're looking at something.
Yeah,
Because I can tell how far you move by the size of your...
yeah, you can tell. Yeah, that's right. You can see I'm either growing or shrinking in your visual field depending on how close I am. That's right. The brain does compensate with tricks like that. But nevertheless, that binocular vision. Interestingly enough, only the guys in this room will be interested in this. The old Second World War ships, they had binoculars. And you look down the binoculars, but the eyepieces were way apart like this. And the guy looking at the target would move those two eyes in so he could angle how far it was to the German ship and drop a shell on it. It's the same thing, but magnified to a bigger extent. Yeah. So next time you're shooting missiles at a ship. Yes.
Alan, I was referred to you by my doctor after I had a fall and hit my head, and everything you're saying works. You had a terrible time finding out why I was having these and they're terrible, these spells. It
Yeah.
can start with sitting up on the bed real fast and everything is spinning. But you told me how sensitive the crystals are, and you gave me exercises that I can do at home to bring them back into place, and it works.
Yeah, it did.
Yes,
And that's,
they work.
yeah, they do work.
Oh, yeah.
The BPP was first discovered in the early 1990s, and since then the techniques have been developed and honed. But yeah, it's actually very simple. 80% of people with a loose crystal problem in their ear will get better with only one session of physical therapy. Just one. When I first started doing this nearly 10 years ago now, this specialized type of PTI, that's just too good to be true, but it is, it's absolutely true. And usually 90% are better by about 2 or 3 days. It's very easy to treat, so that's why when patients come in, they say they're feeling dizzy, I sort of keep my fingers crossed and hope it's because it's so easy to treat. And a third of people who go to their doctor and say, "Doctor, I feel dizzy," a third of them, statistically, will have the loose crystal problem. Okay. Now, it will go away by itself. In the old days, before it was realized what was happening, within 3 months, the crystals will slowly dissolve away and dissipate. But why wait 3 months? We can get rid of it in 48 hours. You know?
What is the exercise?
Well,
It varies.
yeah, so
Big bucks for that.
It depends which canal. Now, you've got 3 canals. You've got the posterior, the anterior, and the horizontal. The most common one that the crystals fall back into is the back one, the posterior canal. Because what happens is people not invariably, but nearly always, the first time they realize it is when they wake up in the morning. Because what's happened, you've laid back in bed, and the crystals have fallen out of the little bag. I'll see if I can find it. I'm not sure.
You get up and you steer.
Yeah, you spin like the devil. Yeah.
I spin when I get
So you've got
tired.
these crystals. The utricle's got this thing inside called a macula. It's the same as the macula in the eye. Macula means stain. The Virgin Mary is immaculate without stain. See, I like it, it's like a crabs. But anyway, stuck on here are these little crystals, little rocks. We probably shed them into the bottom of the utricle all the time. The saccule, by the way, isn't connected, so it doesn't matter. We're probably shedding them all the time, like dandruff. But again, you'll either get something like an infection. A sinus infection is probably the most common thing. The virus will irritate this area. You'll shed a whole bunch of crystals. They'll fall on the bottom of your bag, and they'll form a clump. And then at night you lay down. So this whole thing tilts back like this, and the crystals go down this branch here, typically. It's the easiest one for them to get down. And they fall down into your posterior canal. So now they're swilling about inside the bottom of here. And when you get up first thing in the morning, well, actually it'll be here as you lay on the bed. You get up first thing in the morning, first thing that happens is all the fluids swill around all 6 canals, 3 on one side, 3 on the other. The brain recognizes the pattern of sensation because at the end of each of these tubes is a little diaphragm that's moving in and out as the fluids try and swill. The brain knows what to expect. But then you sit up. These crystals, which are sitting up here, slowly cascade down through the fluid, and that causes a secondary pressure wave against that sensor by itself. None of the other sensors are moving. And your brain thinks, what the? Because it's not used to having just one canal fire by itself, and that's what makes you feel dizzy. Now, what exercises with the question? Well, it depends which canal. Most commonly, it is this back one, and therefore you do a thing called the Epley maneuver. And the Epley maneuver, you lie on your bad ear, you lie back, you wait till the dizziness goes away, plus 30 seconds, then you roll your head that way, and again you wait until the dizziness goes away, plus another 30 seconds, then you roll on your side, and then you sit up. And what that does, it makes those crystals go all the way back around and drop into that utricle where they can dissolve away harmlessly. Yeah?
The test that you do, I saw Charlotte.
That's the Dix hole pipe. You already saw Charlotte.
I saw Charlotte, and the test with the goggles.
Yeah.
That's the most fascinating thing I think I have ever seen.
Yeah, because
Would you explain what I'm talking about?
I will. All right.
Because without that, you don't know which chamber they're in.
That's right. That's exactly right. Now, if you remember back a little while ago, and you should have all been writing this down, there will be a test. There's the VOR, vestibular ocular reflex. Your brain is deciding which way your ears are moving, and therefore it knows which way to move your eyes to keep your eyes focused on the target, right? So that you can see your environment clearly. So depending on which canal the crystals got stuck in, will make your eyes tend to move in a certain direction. If it's the back canal, if it's the back right, your eyes will go up and torque to the right, or if it's the left, if it's the front, they'll go down and with a little bit of torque, and if it's a horizontal, they'll bounce one way and then they'll bounce or the other. So when you roll the patient into the correct position and make the crystals move, the eyes will flicker in a corresponding direction. Now in daylight, your brain's thinking to itself, what on earth's going on? So it focuses on what it can see, and it suppresses the eye movement. But in the dark, with the infrared goggles on, we're watching your eyes, but you can't see anything, and it completely unlocks it. And they go berserk. I mean, they really do. If you go on the internet and look up nystagmus, loose crystals in your ears, you'll find it. You'll find films of people's eyes, and it's called benign paroxysmal positional vertigo. It's benign because it won't kill you, but at the time it's paroxysmal, it comes in bursts and then goes away again. And it's vertigo, spinning. So it's spinning that happens when you're in certain positions, it happens in bursts. Now the reason why most people don't cure themselves spontaneously is because as soon as they feel it, they go, oh, and they sit up like that, and they'll panic because it's a really horrible feeling. And they never actually get to the point where they've made the crystals move all the way back around the canal again. So depending on which canal you're in will alter which exercise you use. And there's, how are we doing for time? Are we okay? Yeah, right. The crystals can, this is pretty rare, but they can go all the way around and get stuck on the sensor. And when that happens, you can tell, because when you put the patient back, it doesn't matter how long you leave them there, the dizziness will still keep going because the crystals are weighting down on the sensor. If the crystals are loose in the canal, once the crystals have stopped moving, it stops. So that's how you can tell. And if you've got that, it's called copulolithiasis, and you have to modify the exercises a little bit by doing a sudden stop and knocking crystals loose off the sensor and then moving around the canal. So in effect, you've got 6 canals. You've got 2 different types for each canal. So there's 12 different ways you can treat it. That's why the goggles are such a boon, because then you can tell for sure which canal it is. But to be fair, the back canal is 80% of them. So if you suddenly find that you're getting dizzy in short bursts when you're in certain positions, go on the internet and look at the Epler maneuver and try it. I will warn you, if you treat the wrong side, you'll make yourself feel worse initially. There's also another caveat too. There's a condition which can mimic this called vertebral artery insufficiency. Without getting too much detail, there's 4 major blood vessels going through your neck to supply your brain with blood, and 2 of them are called vertebral arteries, and they find their way up through holes in the bones of your neck. And if you've got scruffy arthritic necks, I am 58 and I have got a scruffy arthritic neck, so I guarantee virtually all of you will too. In certain positions, it can nip those blood vessels off and make you feel dizzy. And in really rare cases, and this is rare as sensitive, you're more likely that the undercarriage is going to drop off a 747 and fall through this roof as we're speaking. But it's possible you could have a stroke on that as well. So if it's not just dizziness, but your vision really goes blurry, you get slurred speech, difficulty swallowing, feel like you're going to faint, don't do these techniques until you've seen a doctor, because otherwise you could hurt yourself. It's rare, it probably wouldn't happen. I can show you. The technique for finding which one it is in the old days you used to do vertebral artery insufficiency like that. Now the problem with that is you've just done a Dix Hallpike maneuver. So what you do is you have the patient do it like this and keep their head level. If they're feeling dizzy in this position, it's because the blood vessels are kinked, because you haven't moved the ears. You see what I mean? But do it yourself, BAA testing probably isn't a good idea. So in other words, if it's anything other than just simple dizziness, be damn careful. You ought to see a doctor first, especially in your age group. Yeah.
But the main thing is, the best thing to do is if you do have dizziness, go to you or somebody and get tested, because they can tell you exactly what the problem is.
Yeah, if it's this, yeah.
Like in my case, it was a weakness of the left inner ear and
that's
the crystals.
Now that's a vestibular hypofunction. That's a different problem.
Yeah, and I just do a series of exercises where I go up and down
Yeah, you're
20
doing
times.
those called habituation exercises. Now,
And
that problem is such a quick fix.
Yeah.
What's happened there is your ears at rest even when you're not moving, are firing 100 pulses per second into your brain. And what the brain's doing is when you move this way, this horizontal canal firing rate goes up and this one goes down. And the brain looks at the difference between the two to work out which way you're turning, right? So it's like that. Now, if this ear shuts down, to the brain, that looks like you're going to the left. So when you put people in the infrared goggles, you'll get a spontaneous left beat, even before you put them into a funny position. And that's how you found your problem, probably. Yeah. So what you've got to do is retrain the brain to accept that distorted signal by doing balance exercises and deliberately putting yourself into a situation where you feel dizzy and uncomfortable. And eventually your brain will learn that that is wrong, and it will learn to interpret it as that, even though it isn't.
I've learned as long as I do those exercises religiously, twice a day,
Yeah,
I don't have that problem
You train your
anymore.
brain, yeah, that's right,
So,
sorry.
I do.
Question, just with cognitive decline, like dementia or Alzheimer's, are you seeing that really affect balance?
Oh, yeah, but then, of course, all this information is brought into the brainstem and it's processed. Well, if the brain is degenerating, it doesn't process it properly. And that is, well, there isn't much I as a physical therapist can do, unfortunately, in that situation. Yeah. Depends how bad it is. That tends to be later stage Alzheimer's. First of all, it's your cognition, you just get confused, you know. But after that, slowly but surely, the whole brain falls apart, unfortunately. And then problems like this start to manifest themselves. No more questions? Go.
I'll ask something stupid. How come the deaf fellow can dance so well on Dancing with the Stars?
Because he can feel the beat.
No, he can't.
Yeah, he can, because I've got two
If you remember,
deaf
He says he
relatives.
can't.
well,
You can feel it.
What do you-
He's kidding you because he can feel
And
it.
he's trained his brain.
Okay,
he's
he has
retrained his
vibrations.
brain. Yeah.
Because
just
I've
because
got,
you're deaf doesn't mean your
two deaf
vestibular
family
organs aren't
members.
working. No, I've lost it. Okay. If you remember on one of the pictures, the auditory nerve, the 8th cranial nerve, comes out the brainstem, which is like the stalk on a cauliflower. It comes out, goes through the skull, and just before it gets to the inner ear, it splits into two parts. The hearing bit and the balancing bit. Well, you can completely whack the hearing bit, but the balancing bit's perfectly normal. So yeah, you can be absolutely stone deaf and still be able to balance on a tightrope.
Because he does, he dances well.